Order of the Yreka City Council meeting. Please all rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, independent, liberty and justice for all. It's on. All righty, I'd like thank you all for coming, and please silence your cell phones so we don't get interrupted. We will go right into public comments. This is a time for public comments regarding issues or matters not on the agenda, but still within the jurisdiction of the City Council of Yreka. Public comments period is not intended to be a question and answer period or conversations with the council or city staff. Council members, when recognized by the mayor, may ask questions of presenter, but no action may be taken in the city council during the public comment section of this meeting, except to direct staff to prepare a report or place on an item on a future agenda. So it's time for public comments. Anybody, please come up to the podium. Please state your name, your address, if you do desire to do so, and 3 minutes for your remarks, please. Nobody? Okay. There you go. Thank you. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. Marie Autry. So it's going to be 22 degrees tonight. Again, another cold night. And I haven't been here yelling, and I haven't called here yelling because I haven't had a voice to yell for 17 days. But I'm back and I'm yelling. So how many people are dead out there? Do we know?
Actually, none. We're doing checks. Like we did the point in time count this last week. We went through this weekend. We went Sunday out and about. I know that Chief Gilman and their officers have been doing a wellness check. So we're good so far, but you're right. We do need to do something. That's why it's on the agenda tonight. So
I didn't know it was on the agenda.
Yes.
I would have waited to get up here and scream.
Nope, I'm glad you,
here.
Thank you for saying that though, because it does need to be, people need to be aware that we are actually out there going and checking on people and doing wellness checks and stuff on them.
Yeah.
Just to make sure. So
yeah, thank you.
All righty, any other comments this time? Okay, we will move to the consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered routine, non-controversial, and will be enacted by one motion unless a member of the council wishes to remove an item for discussion or a member of the public wishes to comment on an item. A, approval ratification of payments issued January 10th, 2022 through January 23rd, 2022. B, approval of minutes of regular meeting held on January 18th, 2022. C, second reading and adoption of ordinance of the city of Yreka opting in to the Food Siskiyou County Integrated Solid Waste Management Regional Agency Edible Food Recovery Ordinance. There we go. D, approval of resolution 2022-4, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Yreka designating city staff to publish summaries of approved city ordinances. E, continuation of urgency number 864 fireworks. F, continuation of urgency resolution number 2021-51 remote public meetings. G, waive full text readings of all ordinance on the agenda. Ordinance shall be introduced and adopted by title only. Now, since I got through all of that, is there any questions from the council before we get a motion? Okay, and is there any questions from the citizens of the audience at this point in time? Okay, and then I will open it up for, yes, Mr. McCoy. No questions? Okay, great. We have a motion. Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. Joan Smith Freeman, Paul McCoy, aye. Corey Middleton, aye. Debbie Baird, and I, Dwayne King. Motion carried on all of them. Go on to number 5, old business discussion, possible action, city manager, permanent location, local, housing allocation, PLHA program. Okay. Thank you.
Good evening, Jason Ledbetter, City Manager. So I'm here to give a recap on where we currently stand with the PLHA grant. So I am still going to introduce it like I did last time and then tell you where we currently stand. So grant funding can be used in a number of ways, including development, acquisition, rehabilitation of multifamily residential live-work housing, accessibility modifications and lower income owner occupied housing, acquiring and rehabilitating foreclosed or vacant homes and apartments, home ownership opportunities, and finally, assisting persons who are experiencing or at risk of homelessness, which I believe is our intention. And that's what we're working through tonight and in future meetings on this particular grant. Funding has started in 2019 and a total estimate of funding available for a 5-year time frame for the city of Yreka is $612,000. An application will need to be submitted in 2022 in order for the city to have access to funds from 2019 and 2020. The grant process opens in May of 2022. So currently we are technically ahead of the game in the planning phase on how we want to expend these funds. The grant has a 5% cap on administrative fees that can be charged back. And this equates with our total allocation over 5 years to just over $30,000. So I have here the Yreka priorities as I understand them. So based on my understanding of the priorities in the city of Yreka, the areas of focus where we can best utilize this first round of funding and make the biggest impact for those in our community that are unhoused is to focus on assisting persons who are experiencing or at risk of homelessness. So that is a specific section within the PLHA, I believe section 6. A few ideas that seem attainable would be a work plan that included the following ideas: facilitating the operational costs of an all-age shelter, helping to fund the county operations of the No Place Like Home project up on Foothill Drive, and then a youth-focused shelter. I'm kind of here again to hear more ideas about that, but I'll skip ahead to what has transpired over the last 2 weeks since our last meeting. So our proposed funding ideas that we had discussed a few weeks ago or 2 weeks ago here were to support the development operational costs of an all-age shelter, support the development operational costs of the youth shelter, and then to support the Siskiyou Crossroads No Place Like Home project. So some of the questions that I've drawn out here are just if people have ideas on the percentages, they're the percent allocations that they would like to see to these three hypothetical projects, but we can get to that at a later date. So funding from other agencies, I reached out to the following cities: Montague, Etna, Mount Shasta, and Fort Jones, just to follow up to see where they stood, because I know in the past they had said that they wanted to pass the money through the city of Yreka. So the city of Montague would like funding to pass through Yreka and be earmarked currently for a youth shelter if possible. They would like to retain a portion of the admin 5%, and the total year funding would be $412,000, roughly a little over than $412,000. The city of Etna will bring this back to council to get confirmation, but they are recognizing that it makes the most sense to pass the money through to Yreka, but they will need to determine at a future city council meeting. Their total 5-year funding allocation is just over $400,000. The city of Mount Shasta would also like to pass the money through the city of Yreka and apply it to a youth shelter and an all-age shelter. Their total allocation is nearly $540,000. Fort Jones is interested in all the money coming to Yreka as well. And so their total 5-year funding is $415,000. And then finally, our 5-year funding is just over $610,000. So a total of all of these combined entities coming together is just over $2.3 million for the 5-year allocation. So far on this project, I have been able to communicate really well with Sarah Springfield at Yes. I went over and toured her facility. She has a very well understanding, in my opinion, of this grant. Juliana Lucchesi and myself met with Sarah Collard and Madeline Bryan from the county yesterday. They also can take any level of funding, all of it, a portion of it, and apply it either to Crossroads or other programs that they're currently running. If we're unable to use the money for some reason, this is a large sum of money. I have called the Beacon of Hope, and I did talk to Tom O'Gorman, just ran into him here yesterday evening. I'm yet to talk to Michelle. I think she's really the person that I need to talk to, but I do have an inquiry with her and today to have a future discussion on if they're able to use these funds and if they would be interested at a future date that they would technically be bidding on this RFP that went out. So that's kind of where we stand with this particular grant. I still, if there's a discussion that needs to take place or you guys want to direct me in a different area, but I still feel pretty confident that those three priorities are still your priorities and we'll continue to flesh them out. My plan is to bring this along with the next item to every future council meeting until we have a firm plan.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yep. And they're in no particular order. But I think we all recognize that we need an all-age shelter here in the city of Yreka. So that is what I have listed as priority number one, even though we haven't really given them designation on 1, 2, or 3. Secondly, we have the opportunity to fund a youth shelter. We have a great program here already taking place. It's not a shelter. It is an assistance and services provided there. And we have an interested party that would really utilize this funding, as you know, who you've met, Sarah Springfield. And then finally, Siskiyou Crossroads, which is the development that the county is working on Foothill here in the city of Yreka, which is part of the housing element, really. And actually would satisfy a lot of the elements that we're working on in the general plan for the housing element is the third item. And the county feels completely confident any money that we could provide them, they would utilize to that or other programs that they're currently running.
Yes, thank you. So open up to the council. In discussion with this, my personal take on this, all three of them are real well received, I think, and can use, all three of them can use it. Thing I would like to see is obviously whether or not as far as the homeless shelter, whether or not that's even a go, because I mean, at this point in time, like you said, we haven't really got an answer from them. I mean, there has been just talk, but there hasn't actually had an official talk with the Beacon of Hope yet. So I think I feel that we need to have that talk, with the Beacon of Hope and see if they, if they even want it, see if they can utilize it or not. Secondly, my own personal opinion is obviously we definitely want to help out the youth. So that's, to me, is a no-brainer. But we also, if there's in conjunction to the county, what level could we help them out with as far as the crossroads and stuff like that, as far as what good would it, how much money and what good would it do? I mean, we could give them X amount of dollars, but because this is for people that potentially have, at risk of homelessness and whatnot too, and help out their program, which will help out the community as a whole, period, because helping out the people that are at risk of homelessness at whatever level that may be with their apartments, whatever their programs that they have, that's great. But I don't know, how much funding that they would need towards that percentage wise on that. So I guess there's questions for my part is how much, could we actually help them out? I definitely see a need right off the bat for the homeless shelter and for the youth. I mean, that's, to me, is easy to acknowledge that, but the county part wise, I just don't know what that would mean. I mean, are we saying, 25% of it, or are we talking, or just maybe 10% of it, or 5% of it? So I guess my question would be, what percentage could we help them out? And is it really going to help them out? Because if I know they've already got a lot of funding involved in this, as far as like the apartment complex, they've already got, as far as I know, all the funding lined up for all that. So I don't know how much more we could help them with this. I mean, if we can help and it's actually going to make a difference, then great. But if we're just throwing money out there and we could be helping, at risk, or we're right in front of us, risk of homelessness that's in front of us right now, and the youth that's in front of us now, then to me, that's an easy a fix that's going to make more of an impact, put it that way. So yeah, that's my opinion. I'm sorry. I
can clarify your statements, or I can wait if you'd like.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, and we did talk about that with Dr. Sarah Collard at the county. And currently that project is a multi-million-dollar, I mean, upwards of $15 million project. And I think that the It's still in motion and moving forward, but I know that from the conception to, as you would know now, the cost of materials has gone up so much that I think that there is a possibility to provide all three of these programs with funding and still give a decent amount of money if we saw fit with the pass-through money. I just got information on where the city stood, but we could also let them know that we were planning on funding these three items at different percentages and have them have an agreement with us to send their funding in order to pass through to the county if we saw fit. I agree with you that I think that a homeless shelter first, or an unhoused shelter first and foremost, is a huge priority for me in this city. And I believe it's a huge priority for this council. So.
Yes, Joan.
I just have a quick question. And I do see the three, the all-age shelter, and the county.
Mic on?
Oh, you can't hear me. Sorry, Don. I forgot to turn it on. Anyway, my question is, later on in the agenda, we're going to be talking about an emergency shelter for when the weather is really cold. And I was just wondering if any of this funding would cover that, because from what I'm seeing right now, that's not covered by anything, and that would have to come out of general fund. And I'm wondering if that would be something we could fund with this money.
Yeah, you are absolutely correct. Unfortunately, the PLHA is very housing centric, and we're lucky that they have item 6 in the 12 different locations that you could spend the funding on. And that's where we can, but it has to be permanent. The shelter has to be 24-hour operation. And so it will not fund an emergency warming shelter, unfortunately.
Oh, I was just asking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah, getting back to what Jason said, rapid rehousing, rental assistance, and all this other street outreach and supportive case management services. So that's for homeless also. Operating and capital costs for navigation centers, emergency shelters. So it says emergency shelters, but it's for operation cost of one that's what like Jason's saying, is established, not something that's one that we've, how do you want to say, is we open up temporarily as a temporary one. So it's something I don't know if we could look into, but I don't see, by what I've read either, I don't see how it could go towards our emergency shelter in the aspect of what they're classifying as an emergency shelter. From what I understand, it's one it's already set up, like the Beacon of Hope would do that, or what Sarah's doing with the youth or something like that. Those are something that's already set up and permanent in a sense, but it's still an emergency as in getting them off the streets type thing. So,
well, if they're in danger, if the weather is that cold, it's an emergency. Yes. And we'll have to look for funding because, as you know, our general fund, we're already $300,000 in the negative on that. I just don't know where that funding would come from.
Well, that's what we'll discuss anyways. Yes, Corey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Manager, the crossroads you're talking about, is that the proposed Foothill and Sierra Vista Way project?
Yep.
I'm really concerned because we're starting to receive letters of great concern about that project and citizens who are opposed to that facility, not only because the pool's going up the street, but also because we have a senior complex right across the street. And I used to own a property up in the Sierra Vista condos, and we have elderly people walking their dogs up there, and they walk up Sierra Vista. So we're receiving letters of great concern with that facility taking place. One person said they're going to file a lawsuit to stop it. So I'm not in agreement of us funding that project personally, because it concerns me. Not only in that location. I mean, we have kids down the street. We have a proposed pool go up the road. We have two senior citizen complexes and very frail senior citizens that walk up that street. And to have, we don't know, they're not discussing, they just say, mental, they don't say how mental they are, if they're, released from jail, if they've had violent history. They're not discussing that. They're very vague of what I can see. I might have missed something. but I'm not in favor of us supporting that project. My opinion. That's just
No, that's what we're here for. That's why we're
you
doing
know,
this. So
because we're starting to receive emails starting to come in of people not supporting that.
Would you, would this council like me to agendize a representative from the county to come by and give a kind of a really good explanation of that project?
That would be great.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That was going to be my
That'd be awesome.
suggestion, to
Thank you
have
so much.
somebody from them come in
Okay.
and give a full lecture on what the people that are going to be housed there, how it's going to be structured, because there's going to be a full-time manager there on premises. There's a lot of things that the public
Yeah.
needs to be made aware of that you and I know about, that the rest of the public needs to be made aware of, just to know how safe it's actually going to be. So that's something that needs to be public knowledge. So yes, that would be great, Jason.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. McCoy. Yep.
That's a section. This is not going to change the economic makeup of that community.
Nope.
It's been sectioned. I lived on stilts. Stilts, like on, is what we call them.
Still city, yeah.
There's a lot of local people, certainly in that area. And no offense, but I mean,
The design, yeah.
The Sierra Vista originally was built, my understanding, talking to the developer, as a retirement community. Unfortunately, nobody told them that retirement would sell the stairs and aren't built on the side of the hills.
Mhm.
50 years ago. So
Yeah.
I think it's important for us also to look at what the city has zoned
Mhm.
in the areas built already,
Mhm.
because I don't see a huge change, Mr. Ledbetter, in the deference to Mr. Middleton and the rest of the council. I don't see a huge change in that area, quite frankly.
Right.
Is it the best place to build? Maybe and maybe not. I don't know, but I'm not. I mean, it's a place that the county owns, so it makes it a little less expensive to build. Did you say 15 million or 50 million?
My impression from my conversation with Sarah was a 15, but I can get verification and possibly
And about how many units is total?
50.
that I do not know. That's why I would
50.
prefer to have
So, yeah,
a representative come.
Hey, I understand. I mean, I know when I brought up having a homeless in the park up near me in a meeting, it was not, it wasn't like, I said, we've got to put them somewhere temporarily, put them up, fence in the park, and Discovery got after. There's not going to be a great place to start. Put them. Them are human beings.
Mhm,
It's not
exactly.
gonna be a great place. Again, listen to what the county has to say. They may also be similar to what we're looking at for Beacon of Hope and for the campground, in that you're not going to have violent felons.
Right.
They will not be allowed in.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, that's a big thing, to not allow them. And I think we'd all be surprised at how many of people that are around us in our neighborhoods who might find there's somebody close to us that isn't a violent felon, but doesn't felony on the record, or has a felony that the warrant that they're even sitting on, not for violent. I'm not talking about a violent felon. I agree with it. Councilman Middleton is different. So I would love to hear from that. And I'd love to hear from you, Richard, just kind of an overview of, how those buildings are set up. The ones that are, I think some of them are already Section 8 and low income, if I recall from when I was principal over at Jackson Street, 12, 14 years. So, and I don't know that it's done any, and I don't see harm with them. They got
I think it's I think it's the wording that they're throwing out there, that the wording that they're using, and I see in publications, is for, the violently mental ill. If that's what the target they are. I'm saying that's what people are perceiving. Maybe that's not,
Right.
that's what we are hearing. So it's not getting across to the citizens, so it's not getting across to the citizens. That's not what it's about. That's what they're focused on. That one word of mentally challenged transitional housing. And that's what the citizens are reading. You know, maybe it's not about that, but I'm just saying, this is what they're reading, and that's the target word that is getting in their head.
Yeah.
So if they need to come down and speak about the project, or more education needs to get out to the citizens, then that's what needs to be. But right now, that's what citizens are emailing me and texting me. Why are you letting the county house a mental facility? That's what they're calling it.
I know.
Up on Foothill Drive.
Unfortunately,
And
there's no
so-
such thing as mental
Right, so
facilities.
that's what they're thinking, but that's what's in people's head, and that's what the rumor mill is. And so it would be great if we get somebody down here that explains the project from the county, or the county probably needs to do a real good publication in the newspaper of what they have planned, because it's kind of vague, you know, in the citizens' eyes.
Yeah.
And that's
Yep.
all I can say.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, and I will at their ability, based off of their calendar, pair that with Juliana to give a zoning update on the area when we get them. I can't guarantee they'll be available at the next meeting, but I think that's our best bet, is just to clarify the definition of what
Yeah.
that project entails.
Because there could be Section 8 and low-income housing, but when you throw that word in, that's what they're targeting,
Right.
and that's what's sinking in their mind.
Is this in regards to the issue we're talking about, or is it? Okay,
Then
you can come down to the podium then.
Thank you.
Please state your name and stuff, please.
My question is in regards to,
I'm sorry,
Promote-
could you state your
oh,
name?
I'm sorry, my name's Tara Shuttleworth.
Thank
Where are you from?
I live in Big Springs.
Thank you.
I was living out here though for a while. So my question has to do with the promotion. If we've got some of the public that is just confused on what is this money going to? Is it going to be going to the mentally deranged that are violent? Does the city have like a reserve where we could start at least promoting maybe on public radio, public television, the direction we're wanting to go with this? So it's a little more understanding, a little more cohesive for people. Do we have money for that outside of the 2.43 million that's supposedly allocated to Yreka? Can the city help out with at least the promotion of the direction we're trying to go?
I'm not sure if you heard me a few minutes ago, but
Mm.
our general fund
Yes.
is in the minus $300,000. So in my opinion, no, we don't have a lot of extra money floating around, but that doesn't mean that in some way, money could be raised by others. We are prohibited to do that, in my opinion.
And so who would I talk to about maybe being someone who could help? I'm an event producer.
And just to clarify for me, what would we be advertising?
I don't necessarily know if like using the word advertising is the right word. It would be more on how are we educating people? I think at this point, it would have to kind of be an even field, right? We'd have to talk about the issues we're having and the options that are maybe out there and the possible funding, just so when people are calling up Mr. Middleton, we're all watching the same commercials. We're all listening to the same things on the radio. I think so much of what's going on is the confusion on what's happening in the city. And some people just don't have the bandwidth to come to these city council meetings. And so it would be really more of an even field of this is what's happening. What direction do we go down? And
As far
so
as educating, are you educated on the what issue? I guess we need to be more specific, because this our conversation right now is the PLHA grant.
And that's what I'm talking about.
Okay,
And
I
so
just wanna be
we're
specific.
talking about an all-age shelter. We're talking about no place like home.
Right.
We're talking about a youth-focused shelter, right? So we're talking about 3, but it would be more on the lines of this is what's going on. We've got a couple directions to head down, but when we've got our public thinking all this money is going to be going to our mentally deranged, violent demographic, which I don't know how many of those we really have in Yreka, but if some people are thinking like that, well, that's an issue because that's really not what's going on. And if more people found out, oh, wow, this funding is going to help homeless youth and getting them on their feet to be great citizens for our city, I mean, then all of a sudden, do we get more people on board for something like this? And if we're saying, okay, we don't have any money in the general fund, and we don't have this money quite yet coming in. And when we do have the money coming in, it's not going to be going to educating our people. Well, we need that. to move in the right direction. And I know I'd be willing to know at least who I talk to about what kind of a fundraiser, what kind of a fundraiser needs to be created, and what are my resources to make something like that happen. And so, you know,
I guess it comes down to a lot of the citizens stepping up to the plate, just like you're saying. We're having this conversation here, and we like for people to post stuff on the grapevine to have, you know, more public awareness of what's going on, what our conversations are of city council meetings, where, you know, why we're discussing these things. We have a lot of these city council meetings, we are discussing this, and that's why, like what Mr. Ledbetter is saying, that we're going to have, this is just one of many conversations that we're going to have over this PLHA grant.
yeah.
And so it's just going to be a series of things. And yeah, if people want to post it on the grapevine, if people want to talk about it, people want to put it in the newspaper, absolutely.
Yeah, I
we'd
think
love
let's
to do more public awareness stuff.
And the grapevine's great, but they do say when it comes to social media, people aren't on social media really to get sold to or promoted to. They're really there for personal issues. And I mean, it's just something that you hear over and over again. So it really is, can we get some funding, or can we get our news stations to at least give us some form of, not advertisement, we're not trying to promote something, we're just trying to educate our people. And that's through television, that's through radio, but the grapevine is more, that's where you find out who's playing over at the you know, Jefferson Pub or whatever, right?
So I'll tell you what, we'll work on a news release on one of the Channel 10 News or somebody else. And if that's, I mean, I know we've already had a couple discussions. Sarah and I have actually been on Channel 10 News and stuff,
yeah,
and
Jefferson Public Radio
has already been on there, but we need to do more of a public awareness of what this is about and stuff. And
yeah,
so,
short and sweet and to the point.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely. Okay. Thank you. Yes, Mr. McCoy.
And then
Don Marie.
Can't hear you, Paul.
Can't hear you.
There you go.
Federal Communications Commission, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Requires PSAs. I would think that something like this would qualify for a PSA.
Okay.
My concern is we really don't have a commercial radio station, nor have we had one for about 2 years. I was quite surprised when it went out, and NPR is okay, but you're going to reach about 40% of the people, maybe, if we're lucky, in Siskiyou County, and in northern Siskiyou County, just by virtue of the type of music and everything that they carry. Not that it's not a bad idea. I think it's a good start. But, you know, I mean, I think just after teaching for 30 years and having a Down syndrome nephew and working with, they were called TMRs and EMRs when I first started in 1981. The name has morphed, but mentally challenged, mentally deranged, all of those would be grounds for a lawsuit today if a parent heard somebody saying that. That's it would be grounds for an immediate lawsuit in a school, not in public, I'm sure. So it probably behooves us to educate people as to who's moving in. A mentally challenged person would usually probably be a person with an IQ of probably 60 or below. An IQ of 70 to 80, you'll see running our nuclear power plants in the United States. That's who runs them. I am concerned of words that are going out there and that seem to be being reinforced. And I think that somehow we got to stop that immediately. Yeah. Because we're not putting mentally challenged and developmentally delayed are one and the same when it comes to historical use of words, but they're no longer mentally challenged. You know, my nephew's not mentally challenged at 42, he's developmentally delayed. So, and we're not putting developmentally delayed up there. It's not a group home. So yeah, I don't think people understand what's going up there at all.
No,
I think they're very, very misled. And I think we can work with the county. I think Tara's right. We can work with the county to do something more. And I'm going to yield to Don Marie. Okay?
Yield to the madam from 4th Street.
Yes, yes. So I wanted to ask, you know, we talk about the funding, You know, we're running out of money. We're running out of money. Why are we putting a pool in? Yeah, we got a grant, big deal. How are we gonna maintain that pool every single year? It's a fool's errand doing that. When we're using Montague pool, it's working. Why break something that, you know, fix something that's working? You know?
I'm sorry to cut you off, but we will agendize the pool here in the coming 2 months to discuss that. But as right now, we can have public comment on items not on the agenda. But right now we have to stick to the permanent local housing allocation program grant.
I'm getting there.
And I don't necessarily want to focus on the crossroads section of that because we will agendize having somebody come here from the county to better explain that particular project.
Thank you.
I'm getting it.
No, we're done.
So the second thing is people walking around with mentally challenged people. Today, I was walking to Murphy's Pizza when a guy was sitting in front of a dollar store pretending like he was a dog, jumped down in front of me, was going to bite my leg. And I just said, really? And he got back up on his thing real quick. So, you know, we have these mental people walking around this town who happen to be homeless. And that's probably the kind of home they're talking about putting in. But, you know, we have someone from county supervisor we could have invited down here to clear up all of this.
Well, I think at this stage, Donna Marie, we need to have a public awareness from the county.
Yeah.
This is not the time or the place right now because we are just open discussion right now. And that was just one of the avenues. And so we are going to continue this process. We do want everybody's opinions. No, I'm not trying to cut you off.
No,
I'm just trying to stay, you know, focused on it. And we need to have somebody from the county do a presentation to let us really inform us of what's going on. And then it needs to be brought out to the citizens entirely. So everybody knows what this is going to entail, what that facility needs to entail, because we don't want to assume anything. We don't want to assume it's going to be a crazy person that's non-inhabitable in that situation. So we have too many things going out and about in the community. So we need some public awareness to this situation because there's too much going out there and people need to know what's going on. So right. I think, yes. Thank you, Dawn Marie. So in regards to this, yes.
Mr. Ledbetter, can you, I'm going to address some of the questions that you brought up. Do the cities that are named here, Montague, Fort Jones, the 4 cities, are they looking for part of their money? Are they looking to do anything with a shelter in their geographic areas?
No, my understanding at this moment is that they are looking to pass through the money to the city of Yreka, and they would prefer to earmark for specific projects, and the 2 projects that they would like to earmark differently are either an all-age or a youth shelter.
Okay. And then, so would that help them though, in that they could transport people over if they wanted, or I mean, they see that as a benefit though. I just want to make sure money-wise.
I think that they recognize that it is a use it or lose it funding stream, and that the only agency I am aware of in the county of Siskiyou that has started using it at the appropriate time in 2019 is actually the county. And if we do not make a determination in May of 2022, and I'm sorry, Dawn Marie, this is kind of why I wanted to stay on this particular topic, we will lose funding. We will not be able to apply this money. And so I'm not sure if I answered your question, Mr. McCoy.
Yes. So with Montague wanting to retain some indirect cost, what percentage of indirect cost would they want to retain, have they said? And why would they want to retain it? What are they going to do? How are they going to administer the grant in order to retain that cost?
I believe technically it's unlawful for them to retain any of the admin fee, but at this point I was just gathering information and starting the conversation. If they were to retain an admin fee, they technically would need to do the request for reimbursement and be billing back specifically for that retaining money for any particular grant can't be used for any other project. It has to be used specifically on the grant itself.
Okay, now, this is federal money or state?
I believe it's state.
Okay, so I know with the feds that sometimes you don't use the indirect cost, what we're referring to as admin money. I refer to as indirect cost. Is there a chance that whoever administered the grant, right now be Yreka, rather than using 5% of that indirect cost, might only need to use 3%, thus allowing more money for the agencies to which we are giving?
Hypothetically, you could do that, but I will say that most grants are underfunded, specifically on the admin side. As an example, at the county dealing with Cal Recycle grants, there was never enough money to truly have a contract signed. So in this instance, writing a request for proposals, going through all the different bids, signing a contract, and then doing all the paperwork quarterly for request for reimbursement, if there is a request for reimbursement on this grant, would easily eat 15 or 20%. So technically, the 5% is a very low number, and I would suggest that we would use it specifically for its use.
Okay, no, I'm looking at education, and we never had 5%. We were allowed 8%, and we never even hit 5 usually. But yeah, but that's you know, that's neither here nor there. It's just what I'm used to. And the last thing is, because we're thinking about this, we're only thinking about these 3. It doesn't have to be split equally. It can be split equally. But we need, my concern right now, and I'm not saying we need to give more money to one another. My concern after the point in time, and I've been out 4 days maybe, is that our teenage youth is highly underrepresented in our homeless youth. Oh, yeah. They really, really are. I mean, I got kids down to 22, but man, only maybe 1 or 2 teenagers that were with a parent. And so, I mean, I think that probably Sarah is right on when she talks about that. I mean, we don't have the specialization, but when she talks about the teenage youth, I mean, I think the couch surfing is worse than we think it is. So, yeah. I mean, I'm saying that as a statement based on limited, I don't know, 9 surveys, 10 surveys for PIT that I did. Thank you, and I'll yield.
No, you're right. There's just going out there and just even seeing them out and about, and seeing a lot of teenagers that were even in tents and whatnot, and even some that were like young 20s that were around 20 years old and whatnot, that are close to that teenage. But you know, prime example was over there behind the museum. There's some number of youths over there that they're real young. So it's scary. As far as admin fees and stuff, you know, it's ours over the 5 years, 30,602.15 is for the 5% admin fees on ours. And I broke that down. That's basically 102 hours a year that we'd be using on our part, just our part. That's how many hours, and the 102 hours a year for just our part would get eaten up pretty quick, you know, for admins for sure. I mean, that would go, that goes pretty quick. Yeah, that's why I wanted to state how many hours, because I broke it down on how many hours that would be and stuff too. So yes, Mr. Lorenzo, you've been waiting patiently.
Yeah, Lorenzo Love. If you divvy this money up 3 ways, you're going to short everyone. It all needs to go in one pot, and the one pot that's equipped to take this money and actually use it is for a youth shelter. The county doesn't need our money. There's no organization set up to take advantage of it for a all age shelter. So I'd say 100% to yes for the youth shelter.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. Any other public comments or whatnot? Okay. Obviously, I don't know. I don't think there's anything action at this point in time, because I think we're all in agreement that we want some more material brought back to us and some more information, I should say, brought back to us. So unless there's any, yes, Mr. McCoy?
What direction are you want to give?
So obviously we want something from the county to be brought back, and a couple different forms of that. An informational thing of the housing program that they're doing. And if we could actually help towards that, if that would even be an adequate thing, and what percentage that would mean. The second part would be the Beacon of Hope, if they are even interested in it. From casual conversations, it was that they possibly could be, but we haven't had anything official whatsoever. So that was, nothing has been brought up into their board. They're possibly going to discuss that, but they wanted, I think they need direction. So I think it'd be great for you to talk to them and see what their, direction that they would be willing to do, if they are even willing to do it at all. So I think that would be a deciding factor. Like Lorenzo said, if that's the case, then, if they're not willing to take it, then well, it wouldn't no use to even putting that offer out there then. So is there any other direction that?
If I might on that,
yes.
The reason I first was saying that is that a lot of grants are saying that the money can be used in a certain way, and a lot of federal grants have necessarily state that on the job site at any time you cannot use it.
Oh.
And I know that at one point in time they hired a plumber because they couldn't get a plumber. Dwayne and Richard donated all the time on the electric.
So Jill, days.
So that's the only reason they may say, you know what, we'll worry about this. That's,
So yeah, in regards to that, yeah, it's one of his operational capital costs for navigation center and emergency shelter. So that's in that, and also the new construction, rehabilitation, preservation of permanent transitional housing. So that goes in regards to what the county's doing. So there's definitely parts to that. That's what I said, we need some more information, because we can, we could go over this tonight if we wanted to. I could.
No.
And I don't think anybody wants to stick around and go over this. I know Sarah's went over it hundreds of times. I've went over it hundreds of times. And I know our staff has went over hundreds of times too. So I think it's just more information we need to bring back from the county, from Beacon of Hope. Is there any other information that the council would like to see Jason bring back?
Oh, Mr. Mayor, I was just going to say if we could direct staff to bring back more information on this and the needs. In other words, how much funding each would probably need to run the program.
Correct.
So, and then of course, having the information from the county, I think is a good idea, just to give us the facts. Right now, there's just a bunch of rumors.
Yep.
And that's where we're all hearing the worst or the best. We need to hear what the actual policy will do with the program. That will be really helpful, but also for the youth shelter and the all-age shelter. I do believe that those are the two main things that we need. I think that the county is probably, they've got enough funding for their program, but if they don't, they need to tell us.
Well, I think that's a good point you just made too, that I think Sarah, I think you need to she needs to bring forth how that she could utilize this money and how it would be going into each avenue. So, if we're given $600,000, being good stewards of that money, we need to know where that's going to. So something, if you could do a presentation for us too, that would be great. Well, how have you guys arranged that?
Work with city manager.
Yeah. That way because I'd like to have, you and the county, and maybe not the same time, because then it might run into a meeting that's twice as long too. So I think it would be educational, but we'll see. That's something you could work out with Mr. Ledbetter. That would be great.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you.
One more aspect.
Yes.
We could also include some kind of public outreach so that we can develop a policy or a plan to make this information available to anyone who needs it, other than our obvious city website and maybe the water bill letters, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Good. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Any other questions, comments, concerns? This is just one that's going to get held over a few more times, or we get some good direction. But I think we're making some headway. It's been a challenge, but I think because we're looking at all avenues and making sure that we're going to get everybody involved that can be involved in too. Because that's the other thing too is I'd like to hear from if, you know, Aetna, if they make a final decision would be the other thing on that. And maybe some of the other cities too, because we haven't heard necessarily back from all the other cities also. So that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, we'll go to number 5B. Discussion possible action, emergency warming shelter. Mr. Ledbetter.
Jason Ledbetter, City Manager. So this is going to be similar to the last topic where this is just an open discussion, public participation on where we currently stand with our intent to operate an unhoused emergency warming shelter. So the location that the direction I've been given to investigate was the Yreka Community Center at 810 North Oregon Street. So here are the actions that have taken place since the last meeting. So I contacted our insurance rep, Marcus Beverly, from Alliant. He has approved the use of this space as an emergency warming shelter, as long as it's not permanent and unhoused shelter, and it's at the discretion of the council, and it's not a 24-hour operation, which is our intent. So I feel comfortable if we were to head in this direction from an insurance perspective. Staffing, I envision a mix of volunteers and staff to be used. There is no current volunteer organization that has been developed or been contacted to see if the community has an interest in helping with this operation. That would be a part of the next steps. County staff, though, would be able to support staffing of the emergency warming shelter. I had a conversation with Dr. Sarah Collard today, and she feels pretty confident that if we continue to work with her, that she would be able to supply 2 people in that event if we needed to open at this location. But like I said, we would need an agreement or a plan to get fleshed out with Sarah at the health departments with the county. Training, Sarah Springfield, last meeting, if you'll recall, offered providing. She's a certified trainer. So we worked out a plan where we would have volunteers run through YES and get certified and then come work at this location. Funding, you know, there is no source of funding. Unfortunately, it's disappointing that something like the PLHA won't support us handling this, because this is kind of the first step in this process, is having an emergency warming shelter, then a regular shelter, then the pallet homes and the urban campground, and just building and building into finally getting people into full-time housing. So unfortunately, they won't. We do have the Traveler's Aid Fund for shelter. We have roughly $3,000 available if needed that we could throw at staff for some reason if we had to use that. I did speak to Madrone Hospice today because I do not want them to be blindsided if we move in this direction. I believe it's in our best interest to make sure they agree with the use of the space, since they are in there providing an excellent service to the community. They are kind of where I currently am. They are not against or for the use of this space, but they would like to see a safety and security plan. They would like to see a cleaning plan, which we talked about today because I told them that we still needed to develop those. And they're concerned about the integrity of the building, which I am as well, as far as introducing anything into the building externally, and, you know, hypothetically, you know, bringing different things, different items from outside into any new space. You have the opportunity to introduce new invasive species, I guess you can say, or hypothetically bugs or something like that into a space that we have that's already in a really good standing. So that's a concern, but I let Sarah as well know over at Madrone Hospice that we would be working with her if we were to move forward to make sure that we had a plan that we both agreed on. So right now, the way I envision this, if we were to use this space, is we do have partitions over at the location. So we would partition off the main banquet space, basically cutting the building into a third. And I'm sorry, I don't have a diagram for you to look at here today, but there is a window facing Oregon Street. So that third of the building, that would mean that the kitchen was off limits. The dance floor would also be off limits. The entry into the building would also then get partitioned so that you could not go into the area of the offices of Madrone Hospice, but you had access to the restrooms. We will need to create a cleaning plan for the end of day in the morning to make sure everything is clean and sanitized for the business that's currently operating in there. I need to answer the question on what is acceptable for people to bring into the space. Obviously, unfortunately, folks that are living under these dire circumstances, they have a lot of possessions, you know, and so I think there's a big fear that we may not get participation because people can't bring items in. So I'm still fleshing this out as far as if we had like a locked area outside where people felt comfortable to bring things over, but that's a discussion we can have tonight or in the future. The plan would also include notifying YPD to see who's on site so that we could have at least maybe hourly engagement from them, or that they're just aware that the site was functioning, so it could be on their radar. I also assume that the warming shelter would be opened at the direction of the council. So that would be a decision that you guys would need to make. We wouldn't possibly call an emergency meeting in order for you to direct staff to open the emergency warming shelter if we were to at some point agree that this was the correct plan. I also believe that we should avoid bringing any kind of cloth extra items into the space just for reasons that I have mentioned in the past here tonight. And then we would need to advertise this because I think it's important if we're going to open, we want to get as many people inside as we possibly can. So I believe the next steps are, and this is where I would really like public participation and participation from the council tonight, is to develop a security and safety plan for the site that Madrone Hospice agrees with, develop a cleaning procedure plan for the site that Madrone Hospice also agrees with, advertise for volunteers or the formation of a group to help operate so that we can get folks in that we know are interested, we can get them trained, and basically on a call list that we would be able to pull from those volunteers in order to operate in short notice. And then finally, if for some reason people don't feel good about this plan, members of the public, the council, I need alternative locations, alternative ideas, or a different path to go down. Because right now I will just continue to go down this path as the direction I've been given. So
thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Jason. Appreciate that. So yeah, a couple of quick remarks on what Mr. Ledbetter stated. We did the point in time count this last week, and what he stated, breaking into thirds, Joan and I looked at and would agree that that was the best situation to break up the community center. Also, we walked it, Joan and I walked it when we're doing the point in time count, and that was a perfect place to break it off of exactly where you're talking about. So that way they have access to the bathrooms, access to an entrance, it can be regulated properly, and all that. One question I do on a couple things, I guess, as far as I know we were discussing on this too, and part of the reason I think we're trying to get this in line, and I think Juliana was trying to work through this too, was if there's possibly, if we declare a state of emergency, that there might be possible funding that we could get through the state, possibly, say when we had the big snowstorm and we could declare it a state of emergency. So I don't know if that's a possibility in the future I know we have discussions on that, but I don't know if that's something we could look into. So that would ease the financial pain of that burden. Yeah, and as far as only overnight, unless some other state of emergency was stated on that point in time, that overnight would be the only feasible thing at this stage. You know, we did the last one, what the state of emergency they did to the behavioral health and stuff, which was great. They did that. Most of the time during the day it warmed up because those overnights were extreme, but the days actually did warm up to where it was adequate. So I think, you know, depending on the temperature, that's where we get back to temperature wise and the fluctuation. We used to, back in the day, we used to get about a week or two here in Yreka of temperatures that would be at 0 degrees. And that's when it starts becoming real dangerous, because it's 0 degrees, it's not getting above freezing. So then that would be a situation that we'd have to look into possibly for the daytime also. So that's something we need to talk about as a council too, that how is that going to look if we get to those type of temperatures? We may never get back to that. We're supposedly global warming. So with global warming, we may never see that again. But in regards to that, it used to happen all the time. Back when I was growing up, and even up to about 10 years ago, we'd see about a 1 week span of 0 degree weather that would never get above 30 degrees during the day. So that's other thing we got to look at. Beacon of Hope is obviously another outreach that we need to, that's another further discussion we need to talk to them about, because staffing wise right now, their staffing is struggling because of COVID and everything. That's the reason why we don't have a shelter going on right now, and why the churches aren't doing it this year is because of COVID. So that's been an issue on that part. So their staffing is struggling to be able to do something like that, but they may in the future be able to do that. The other thing is, in contacting with the Beacon of Hope, they actually already have the beds. Even though it's supposed to be a warming shelter, I know it's supposed to be classified as a warming shelter. They actually have the fold out beds that are vinyl coated and stuff. So they're something, and they already said that they would, whether we could utilize that. I talked to Don Langford, and he said that they would be more than happy to let us use those in regards to that. So that's something we could look into for that part too, so we don't have to worry about them. So working in a partnership with them might be something that'll be useful for the future too. The other thing we need to establish, we're talking about council and figuring out what that temperature needs to be, what the stipulations need to be on opening it and closing it and all that stuff. It's a little more intricate here as far as Siskiyou County. You can get hypothermia from basically jumping in a lake that's 50 degrees. So, I mean, that can be, happen on below, temperature. It doesn't have to be 0 degrees to get hypothermia. So we need to figure out what that means as far as opening and closing that. A lot of our individuals around here, and I'd probably get criticized for this, but a lot of our homeless individuals around here have acclimated to this environment, and they're used to it to a certain extent. That's why we're fortunate enough that the YPD goes out and does wellness checks on a current basis. They go out there all the time, making sure, Willow's out there, YPD's out there, checking these individuals, making sure that they're safe. So we get an idea. Those guys, when the last time we had this declared an emergency and opened up the behavioral health, like I said, I went out, that was New Year's Eve. I went out during the day. I went out all parts of town just to let the homeless individuals know that this was being opened up and talk to them. And a big percentage of them, probably 75% of them said, no, we're fine. We're okay. I got extra sleeping bags. We're good. So it needs to be done. Don't get me wrong. We need to have an emergency shelter for these individuals to go to. But I guess what I'm getting at is a lot of these individuals won't go to them. No matter what, no matter what we invite them to, they're not going to go to some of these places. So, yes, Jen.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to make a suggestion that for guidance for policy for the emergency shelter. I know that Jackson County, I believe to the north, does have a policy, and they have a temperature. When it reaches a certain temperature, right, and I believe it is 32 degrees freezing, then they open up their emergency shelters. I know I've seen them on TV, and they do have, like the pallets or the beds that they have, and they have them in basements in churches and various places. Why can't we direct staff to look into what counties around us are doing and what the temperature is? I think we'll probably find that most of them are 32 degrees.
They are.
And then what their policy is, because as our city manager said, if we're going to declare an emergency each time, it's going to slow down the process like it did last time. Luckily, we had Nancy, we had our supervisor to help us in the county. So I think that if we just set, as other areas have done, if we set a temperature, if it's 32 degrees or below, or 33, whatever you guys think is the best, I think that it would be easier for staff and our volunteers to know it's going to be cold. We're going to open up the shelter.
I guess what I'm getting at is if we do that, it will be a permanent shelter because it'll be open every night.
Well, lately, but
Yeah.
not all year long,
No, but it will be
No.
open at least 3 months out of the year.
probably.
Yep. It'll be
Probably.
from about mid-November to February, middle of February.
Well, I think it started freezing around December this year, but yeah, it was December, January, February, probably at least 3 months, right? You're right.
So I mean, I'm just throwing this out there because if you do that, it will open it up for pretty much like this rest of this week. It wouldn't be open.
Well, good. If it's permanent, we'll get funding. Right?
Seems so nice.
Right.
Yep.
Right,
So
I
that's
agree.
21 day and it's gonna open. We're forecast for rain maybe 2 or 3 times, twice
This is horrible.
in the next 90 days.
I know.
We're forecast for cold for a long time.
Right.
Yeah.
So preset, none. So I mean, I think what Councilwoman Smith Freeman is getting at is a good idea. She's saying we need a trigger.
Right.
We do need, it would be
Right.
nice to have a trigger, but if we do that, it's,
Saying maybe 32 is too high of a trigger, and that could be.
Wow.
I mean, I remember standing on the playground across the street here in 10 and 12 degree weather.
Mhm.
And when I lived on Dexter, I can remember one year I think we were 7 degrees for the whole week at night. So I thought we'd freeze and nothing would froze. So
it's a hard,
it's going to be cold, but maybe, and I'm not trying to be mean, and maybe 32 is not the trigger. Maybe it's
right.
31 or maybe it's 27. But I mean, I'm looking at this and we're down in the 20s all week.
Mm-hmm.
As low, I think it's 21.
And see, a part of that trigger too, you got to look at in conjunction to is the daytime highs too. When you're reaching 60 degrees during the day and 25 at night, it's changes the dynamics of that too. So it's definitely some more conversation.
Because what it means is that your low isn't till 5 or 6.
Exactly.
And then your sun's back coming up at 6:30 or 7. Now, granted, it's not going to get 60 degrees till, but I mean, yeah, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days at 60 degrees.
Yep.
Every day except one is above 53.
Exactly.
So, yeah, but I mean, I think what she's
Yeah.
saying is good. I think you have a trigger, and then you're not, then Mr. Ledbetter not calling.
Are we yet? Are we here yet? Are we there yet? Yeah.
So perhaps exploring
Right.
this
Right.
surrounding counties, including someplace like Humboldt, where they don't have the temperature change that we do.
And Reading. Right.
Yeah.
Reading.
I would say Sacramento's 30
Mm.
degrees.
Mhm.
Also, 'cause that works.
Yep.
They're what?
Most
Oh.
shelters are 80 and
Yep.
Okay.
Sacramento's 30 degrees.
Okay. So they're activating their shelter.
Yeah. Yeah.
More exploration.
Cold. Cold. Wet. Cold.
So I'll open this up for the public since she's
Okay.
been waiting patiently.
Okay, and just, I don't know etiquette, so if I'm not supposed to, I'm under the impression when I want something to say, I come up to the podium, is that
You got it.
correct? Okay. So, Mr. Ledbetter, you were talking about how we advertise this emergency shelter and how we get volunteers in, and just with my personal experience, volunteers, it's challenging to rely on people that are volunteering their services. I think we all know this. In addition to that, it's a full-time job to coordinate that. We don't have the funding. So I am welcoming the council to think about reaching out to College of the Siskiyous and looking at something where we give credit to college students that are maybe wanting to become city managers or wanting to start up their own nonprofits, or something where we get them into the system. There's possibility for maybe job availability after graduation, but at the base of it, they are getting credits to help with this, because you are getting educated people that are coming in at the ground level and helping with this grassroots project. And their hearts are already into it because they're getting the education. And anytime I hear volunteers, I always say, go to the colleges, let's get these people, let's get these students credits.
No, good idea. And she brings up a good point too, as far as the volunteer basis and policy in this too. At Rogue Retreat, Everybody thinks it's all done by volunteers. It's not. It's actually, they have very few volunteers because unfortunately, as they stated, Chad, the executive director there, stated that they cannot rely on volunteers to run the program, that they have to pay staff to have this done because the volunteers, they can't depend on them. So that's definitely a good point that she made. Thank you.
Lorenzo Love. The problem with having this at the community center is that's not where the homeless are. The vast majority of the homeless are 3 miles away down by Greenhorn Park. How are they going to get to this shelter?
Very good point, but that's why we're trying to do a shelter and an urban campsite to move them to a more convenient space.
Well, that might be years.
So where do you propose putting them down
A
at that end of
pavilion,
town?
a large pavilion style tent in behavioral health parking lot or COS parking lot with big propane heaters. And that can also be used during the summer for a cooling shelter, because we're going to need that too.
Good.
And it eliminates all this worry about damage to the community center and cleanup and all that. I mean, you take the tent down and you sweep the parking lot. You might want to add a couple of porta potties.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's for emergencies. It doesn't have to be luxurious.
Very good point. Thank you. Thank you for solution. Thank you. Okay. Any other public comments?
Okay, I got it. Okay, so I know that we're all still working on this, but it's 22 degrees tonight. And I know they're being acclimated, but you go out there and stand out there and get wet. See how long you can stand.
No.
I happened to have gotten in the shower before I came here, and just my walk in, I'm still cold and I am still shaking. And I might even have hypothermia sitting here in this building.
It was cold when we got here, huh?
Yeah, 55 degrees. And I'm whining. And they're out there trying to live. You know, and uh-oh, hang on, I lost my, there it is. And also, how is this going to work if every time we need to devise a homeless shelter, Mr. Ledbetter, or, you know, you say that it's up to the council, they have to have a meeting like this to get together to talk about an emergency shelter. So that plan's not going to work. There has to be a different way to ring the bell. And most cities, it's called cold blue temperature. If you Google cold blue temperature, you'll see the policies. If you Google code red, you'll see the policies, because, you know, they have put them out there for people to learn from them and how they are structured and what they need to do in an emergency when it falls under 32 or, you know, 30 degrees. Right. Most of them are 30.
Yeah.
You know, and when it's too hot, you know, and it's not just for homeless people when it's hot. You know, Illinois has one for people who are too old. Yep. They actually have a van that goes out and saves lives, because without it, people die in their apartments. Mm-hmm. So we do need a facility all year round. And there might be months where we don't use it, but there's going to be months when we do use it. So I hate to mention the P word, but the P is not needed. Saving lives is. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Do we got, oh, yes.
Yes, my name is Lenita Ramos, and I do have a suggestion for a facility on South Foothill, there is a 21,000 square foot building, and it is metal roof and has the sidings, and there's bathroom, there's water, there's power. It used to be the dismantler, the auto dismantler, and it is available for purchase.
And who's got that available?
And it's very close to the homeless.
Yeah.
You do have to
You
disclose.
do?
Well,
You would
not
make money
anymore.
off of it.
Not anymore.
Oh, you don't?
But I do
Oh.
believe that that could be an amazing solution for anything that it's needed for the homeless. It's near the Beacon of Hope as well. And you are very familiar with the building. It could be, it is there. Just an idea.
No, thank you. Appreciate it. No, I think you're definitely on a good track there. Thank you.
It was initially offered a Beacon of Hope about 2.5 years ago. I think 169,000.
Yeah.
Is what the owner in Sacramento. When I was just, I'm not a city council person. I just worked in the Beacon of Hope, and the guy that was magic. So starts talking to John and I and Steve and everybody, because he walked us through the building. So
Yeah.
I mean, I know that what Ms. Reynolds is saying is because that's pretty nice practice.
Yeah, it's a good turn of topics for sure.
It's
Okay.
possible.
Yeah. So what else do we have any direction for Mr. Ledbetter? The council wants to,
Can you suggest something?
yes,
Because of the last emergency situation, we were short on trained staff. Can we get ahead of that and maybe start the training now as opposed to later so that they're ready and available?
Yeah, we can reach out and try to get volunteers and start funneling them through YES for training.
yeah.
Thanks.
Sarah, you said you traded in basically, right?
Yeah, so it's the crisis prevention and intervention training. And there's actually an online module and there's a workbook. I brought a copy of it. And then I think there's 4 hours that I would actually train in addition to the workbook and the online module. And then so probably when we got a group together, it would be better, to do a group for that 4-hour part, but the online module people could do at their own pace. Yeah, and they can just, we can coordinate and I can give them the access.
No, that's good. And
Okay. Okay.
And people need to understand the significance of this training too, because you need to be able to identify certain situations that you could be getting into. You can't, as much as we want to, we obviously want to help out individuals, keep them from freezing. But if certain people are going through mental crisis and we don't have the proper trained staff there, it could escalate into a bigger problem. People could die. People could, there could be significant bodily damage. There could be other situations that could arise. And it's the safety of not only the people that are going there, but the people that are volunteer, that they need to be able to identify these situations and be able to help and steer these situations in the proper direction. So if it needs to require, that at that situation, they identify the situation that this is escalating into a bad situation, then we can call YPD and they'll be right there. They'll be there on call, whatever. But we need to be able to have that to identify what the situations could be arising and keep everybody safe at that point in time. So.
Yeah, I would say it is important to have policies in place,
Yes.
right? That trainings that volunteers can reference, and that this training would not remove the necessity for those policies, right? A lot of it would be when when to call in another person who can make those decisions about what happens.
Yeah.
So those things would still be up to the city, to the council to determine those policies.
Great. Thank you, Sarah.
And although when I've been out with YPD on my car, when I've been out with YPD on my 5 ride-alongs, the one thing I have observed, I don't know what their training is, but I have observed them diffusing very few, because most of the homeless just won't get along. But there are a few people in our community that will throw out the most, the worst insults and what they're going to do to police officers, wives, daughters, family, And I've observed the officers diffuse it wonderfully and with a smile and walk away, and the homeless person who has done this, or homeless people, is not anymore upset.
No, they're good. Our YPD is good.
Will help us and give us quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jerry Stalker, Yreka resident. I agree with this gentleman on people getting to the community center. I had that same thought today. And then as we were discussing it, I had an even worse thought is people leaving. It seems like a logistical nightmare when there's people that use the building every day to shuttle people out of there in a timely manner. And also about the temporary building, the quality of the building isn't necessarily what's important. The community center, from what I've seen, is a tremendously impressive building and not necessarily should be utilized for that particular cause. And when the grant money cannot be used towards a temporary heating facility, what are the costs going to be involved to set up a temporary facility compared to setting up a permanent facility? What is the time frame going to be to set up a temporary facility to set up a permanent facility, so we can call it a permanent facility and then you can use your grant money to improve it?
Right. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
So we can compare, and fellow council, since we can compare apples and apples, and what you're saying is interesting, because we need to know a time frame for our employees to set up a tent. I'm not saying, I'm actually, that's something that Beacon of Hope was talking about before, a tent warming
Right.
behind us. And they have reasons why they want to do it, and they have reasons why they don't, but I won't go into right now. But might it be in our interest just to look at what it costs for a tent?
Sure.
For a large tent. And I don't think you want a party tent similar to what they have down here. I think what you want is you want a tent like they use in Desert Storm, Iraqi Freedom.
Yeah.
The kind that they use right now, or they were using in Afghanistan. And there are surplus of those going around. That's not saying they're cheap, but there are surplus. I know there's somebody out there.
Big Springs. Yeah, in Big Springs, right?
Out of Big Springs that they provide them for U.S. military.
Right. Right.
Right.
They might need somebody not to get, just to get a cost.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm not saying we do it or don't do it. I just say,
yeah,
let's compare apples and apples.
Absolutely. No, makes sense. Makes perfect
Shastina,
sense.
And Lake Shastina.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
Bob Stafford, they supply military tents all over the world.
Right. I can't remember the name of their company, but Bob Stafford's the owner.
If I find it, I'll text it to you, Jason, and I'll ask online.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have a question, because I don't know. I don't know. Is there any way that someone could gift the city something for a tax write-off?
Yeah, I believe.
We're not a nonprofit, though.
Not a nonprofit.
If you have some type of project like that, I'll give you my card and we can flesh out that idea throughout the course of however long it takes. So.
Maybe her. That building that is right up from the Beacon of Hope. As a tax write-off, maybe the person who owns it might want to gift it to the city for a homeless shelter. That's an idea. And then the tents for our emergency shelters also could be gifted to the city.
Absolutely.
As a tax write-off.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thanks.
I want to add on, so we're
back to
I don't want to shoot John down, but I do want to let you know that under the new tax laws that Trump slipped in, I'm not defending or getting on any president. Federally, you have to give $21,000 or more to see any kind of a any kind of a tax liability. A tax break, because we donated our delivery truck and it was like 15, 16,000, and we donated 2,000 or 3,000 in washers and dryers out to Rescue Ranch, and we didn't come close.
Wow.
So, but I mean, like, the property would, and,
Yeah, be interesting to see. It's something to check into for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
I think it's such a hypothetical at this point.
We can ask staff to look into it.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion? We need to, like I said, look into some of this stuff, bring it forward. Anything else?
I think that we should direct staff to look into this.
I think we did, didn't we?
No, did we ask staff to look into the cost of the tent and?
Yeah.
Yes, I will continue
Yes.
moving forward, rallying volunteers to get for a future training with Sarah Springfield at Yes. And then I'll investigate the cost of the tent and what that would look like. And then even formulate, based off of the commentary from the public tonight, the location of where that can take place. So
Yeah,
that's
where
great.
it'll be located
And the
at, yeah.
heating, yeah, we have to provide heaters and stuff.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
And I want to make one comment to the council and everybody that's here and listening. I want to thank Celia Baldery. She attends our meetings regularly. She had a wonderful idea on Facebook. I commend her for it. And that is buying I'm trying to think of what you call it when they finish a surplus shower /
And
laundry trailer. And that's something like Dawn Marie is talking about with the tents. You know, if we could get a citizen that wants to set up 501c3 and do that, and then, you know, if they want to operate it or if they want to donate it to Beacon of Hope or something like that, I think it's wonderful. And I applaud Celia for getting it out there on the grapevine.
Well, it's all of our citizens coming up with good ideas. The hard part is, you know, the citizens ask us to do these certain things. Unfortunately, because we're a government, it goes so freaking ass slow that it drives us nuts. As a business owner, if I ran my business this way, I'd be bankrupt in 6 months. So if we can get the public involved, the citizens involved, and take control over some of these things, like what Beacon of Hope started doing, it's like everybody talks about, oh, we need this. Well, yeah, Beacon of Hope's trying to do these things. They just need support. They need people to help them out. And I'm not saying financial, I'm just saying to help them out in whatever shape or form. It doesn't take, it takes these nonprofits, it takes these individuals, citizens to make some of this happen. We can't fix everything. And as you can see, when we try to fix something, it just drags out for freaking ever. So we need citizens to step up to the plate and do their part as much as they can. We talked about going out and talking to the homeless and stuff. And we talk about the Beacon of Hope and what they've done. And they've done amazing things. They've done a lot of stuff. And we need more citizens out there doing their part and doing what they can to do. I know there's only so much we can do, but when it comes back down to us and it comes down our shoulders as a city, it ends up being paperwork that drags out for frickin' ever. And it's frustrating. And I'm sorry that I'm stating this, but it's the truth. And I wish that more people got involved and made a difference, because that's what it's going to take to make a difference in the city, is the citizens stepping up and doing something, because we're trying. God knows I put in a lot of hours in the homeless. I know I criticized a lot, but I know how much time I put into it, how much the council puts into everything, how much we put time into a lot of different situations, and we get criticized on a lot of different avenues, thinking that we don't do anything, but we do. We put a lot of time in a lot of different situations, and we need the citizens to step up once in a while to do their part. So anyways, anything else we need to add?
No, I think I'm good with the direction. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Going on and to number 6, new business, discussion, possible action, human resources, adopt a resolution of the city council of the city of Yreka for the creation of a position of assistant city manager, adopting the associated job classification, compensation, the position. We have Mr. John.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. So I'd like to present an overview of the staff report for the creation of an assistant city manager position, as well as the job classification. This will be a limited term contract at will position with the purpose of assisting the city manager and other department leaders within the city. The assistant city manager position will support projects directed by the city manager related to budget preparation, short and long-term planning, providing leadership to city departments, and overseeing specific projects directed by the city manager. This will also be an FLSA exempt position that follows benefits with the Yreka management team. The salary range within the contract is $110,000 annually. Attached within the staff report, you'll notice the newly created job classification that we're asking to be adopted tonight, as well as a resolution asking for an amendment to the city's compensation and salary structure. Is there any questions I can assist with the job classification or staff report?
You said it is exempt from
Overtime exempt, yes, it would be exempt position similar to other department heads.
And not paying into retirement?
It would pay into retirement as well, yes.
And benefits.
All city management benefits outlined, and that's specifically outlined in the contract.
Yes.
I have a question. I did see a couple of things. Yes, Dad. I did see a couple of things that I think maybe should be discussed a little bit regarding the description on page 2. About in the middle, it says negotiates contracts and agreements, coordinates with legal counsel and city department representatives to determine city needs and requirements for contractual services. And I'd like to add there, and reports findings to city manager. And then if that works with everybody else. And then the other part that I would like to change or add to on page 3, down under ability to, and there's one line, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 little arrows down. Plan, organize, and direct the work of staff, select, supervise, train, evaluate, and discipline staff. I think it would be better served if whoever's in that position discusses the discipline action with the city manager and department head. I don't think it should be on one person, because I just feel that it's better protection for that person as for all kinds of things.
Absolutely, Debbie, that's a good point. And Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, but if there was any type of discipline or pre-disciplinary process, I would expect that would definitely go through human resources as well as the city manager at a minimum. In this case, it's just the ability to, which which would mirror a department head level position, just having the ability to. And once again, that still should go through, in my opinion, human resources and the city manager as the final approval for a disciplinary.
That would probably need to be in. That's part of the description. I agree.
Well, this is part of the chain of command already. It is part of chain of command.
Right.
And we do have personnel policies we are working on, and we have some already in place. I'd have to check those for resolution 2371. It may outline some of that already.
Those were my concerns, whatever council wants.
So as long as it follows protocol, then basically amounts to them.
Absolutely. I'll definitely take those points to Debbie and talk with Jason about them.
Does council have any other questions?
I think John wants to have that.
Yep. Thank you, John.
Cool.
Awesome.
Then
Do we have any?
vote. We have to have a vote.
We have to open up for the public
Oh,
for comments from the public. So I'll open it up now for the comments from the public.
When is the job going to be available?
So this is a limited term contract position. With approval today, we would have a contract in place as soon as possible. Actually, it could probably be effective tomorrow. It would be effective tomorrow. I'm not at this time. It's not a full-time, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's not a position that's budgeted long-term. It's not like a maintenance worker or fiscal and admin tech. We would ensure that the person that's going to be in the position is qualified and that would suit the city the best. But it's not going to be advertised.
Okay. So, do you like driving cars?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I can. So just to clarify, it wouldn't be a position that's flown on the internet that that's going to be competitive, similar to other positions.
You want people that are already involved in the city and know about it.
Yes, we want someone that's qualified and has the expertise and the history with the city.
Correct.
It's very short term.
As of right now, yes.
Right.
Just with everything happening right now.
Temporary.
Yep, absolutely. And just to help support that, just generally speaking, we have 4 new fiscal and admin techs under 1 year seniority. We have 3 department heads that have been here less than 1 year, and then Jason's new as well. So,
Somebody with continuity.
Yeah, we're looking for continuity and historical relevance to have more of a seamless transition. And this was always the intent, and you're seeing the finished product here tonight. So
Absolutely. It's one of those situations that will help us transition through this period that we're going through, because we have a lot of qualified individuals that have come on board that unfortunately, though, they don't have necessarily the background of the city, of years of experience of this particular city, put it that way. So this particular position will help transition through this point in time that we're going through. That's why it's a short term at this point in time, just to help us transition through this struggling period and help everything go smoothly. Is what it's designed for.
Well, if you don't have the continuity, but you do have the skill set, how about if you're finding people that maybe are new to the area but are very involved with the city, that are maybe involved with like historic aspects of the city and things of that nature? Would you give them a chance?
Oh, well, that's the thing where we're open to whatever. Yeah, as far as that goes. Yeah, we're just, this is a creation to where we can, hopefully get through this period of time. So yeah, if we can get it, the more experience so we can get on that, the better. So yeah, we're opening that up. And this might be something in the future that we'll look into continuing something to possibly too. It's something, it's new to this city. We've never had an assistant city manager. So this is something that.
We've had employees that had 2 jobs.
Yeah, but we never had this classification.
Yes, actually, when Liz was, you're right, not separately.
Right.
When Liz was here, she was city clerk and assistant manager.
Right.
You're right.
Of this classification. Okay. Yes, with the clarification of the verbiage that as long as that's.
Well, John has already said this. Okay, let me do not his. I like some use because what may happen is that his personnel, not personnel, policy files may already dictate that. So if we go and put it in, we may be having a redundancy. Maybe in the Office of Redundancy Department.
Yeah, I would recommend leaving disciplinary procedures out of it. We have I don't have them in front of me tonight, but we do have policies and procedures. And we definitely make sure, there's involvement with city manager, human resources in it. But it is ability to, it is just the ability to being at that level of a position. And there was I think it was a month or 2 ago, a resolution staff report on, making small administrative changes to job descriptions, per the city manager. So in the future, we can, make those changes if that's what the council would like. We would just want to make sure that the contract that matches the exhibit to the job classification, is the correct one that we would make any changes to tonight.
Great. All right. Thanks, John. Wake up, everybody. Come on.
Mr. Mayor, I would like
Yes,
to make,
Joe.
I would like to make a recommended motion to adopt a resolution of the City Council of for the City of Yreka approving the new classification for Assistant City Manager compensation for the position and authority to execute an employment contract with the selected candidate.
With the
Suggested changes.
verbiage that John
Verbiage.
and Debbie suggested.
Right.
Correct.
Councilman Middleton, I will second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. We will do roll call. Joan Smith Freeman.
Aye.
Paul McCoy.
Aye.
Corey Middleton.
Aye.
Debbie Baird.
Aye.
And Dwayne Keig, aye. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
All righty, we will move on to city manager staff reports.
I do have a city manager report, but I would like to yield here for a moment before I go to Ben, because I know he's been waiting patiently.
I saw Ben up there. Hi, Ben.
Did you say that out loud?
Take him out loud.
Next year, Paul, next year.
Yeah.
So Arthur's actually helped out with a little slideshow to go with this as well.
Oh,
Good.
But I was just doing a staff report based on some homeless camp cleanups we've done
Oh, good.
recently and some that we have scheduled.
They've been busy.
Yeah, we'll be back out it tomorrow. But so this is just kind of a cost breakdown of, I used Cartograph, our new asset management program, to run a report just on some costs of what these cleanups do to, I have no better place to charge it than our parks budget. So you'll see in the photos, there is a lot that needs to take place at these camps to get them clean. Equipment, for example, the day one on Campus Drive, we ran every available maintenance worker that I had, 3 dump trucks, a backhoe, 2 service trucks. It just really adds up. And we had, I believe it was 10 personnel on that job and the code enforcement officer, and we needed everybody.
Oh, yeah.
So I did some numbers, just how my brain works that just to make sense of the numbers. So that single day of labor was, I roughly said it's $2,000, and thought in a standard month, maybe we'll perform one of these cleanups. So 12 a year. So that comes out to $24,000. And then I took that $24,000 over our annual parks budget for full-time employees is $70,000. So this is 33% of our budget that isn't really accounted for in our full-time labor
Part of that
force.
300,000.
But it is, I mean, for our full-time labor employees for 2022, we have $70,115. So there's really not many of these camps that we can clean up that puts a huge dent into that. And it's just something just for me to get it out to people's attention. When we try our best, our maintenance workers are great, our parks guys are great, but sometimes there's a lack of, especially the fringes of the parks. We're keeping them mowed, we're keeping them usable, we're doing what we can, but something's got to give to make this. It just hasn't been accounted for to the level that it's at. And when I did the equipment numbers based on the labor, so in our budget, you use labor hours, and then we have a fleet charge back for equipment that's charged back on what the maintenance amount for vehicles for purchase, maintenance, everything on those is in, excuse me. It came out to about half of our budget just on these cleanups, just with the number of vehicles we're coming in at. And that's using Caltrans rate, which is, they built numbers on what it costs them to purchase and maintain a piece of equipment kind of as a nonprofit, what they think it costs for this class of equipment. And the numbers kind of blew me away a little bit on how much of this parks budget. I honestly don't know if parks is exactly where it should be charged, but I don't know a better place to put it.
Right.
So I just really wanted to bring it to your guys' attention today. And then there's photos that follow. So if Arthur, if you could kind of slowly run through just to see what these what these camps are. You know, you get in there with the backhoe and dump trucks, and you do what you can with the machine, but there's so many uneven places in the grounds and obstacles that there's a ton of handwork with garbage cans, 55-gallon drums cut in half. There's everything else you can with garbage pickers and staying away, because there is absolutely stuff in those camps that you do not want touching on your body. You can't grab arm loads. Our code enforcement officer does a fabulous job going ahead of us and gets a lot of and has works. She works. It's unbelievable how well she works with the individuals in these camps. If it wasn't for what is done there, I don't even know what they'd look like. But she works with them to pick up as much as they can. She helps. But there's just a lot, and there's not like an easy way. So we utilize totes, anything we can just to stay away, get things in, get them in the backhoe bucket, get them in the dump truck. And we wear chaps for chainsaws, for sharps. We bought puncture proof gloves. We do absolutely everything we can to protect ourselves, but it slows the process down just because of the nature of the job and the precautions you have to take. So all these photos have been Campus Drive. That's our dump trucks. And that's just a small portion of what goes on, and that's after a lot of other cleanup has taken place ahead of time. But they're not in obvious locations. They're in anything that's bulky, tarps, sleeping bags, sweatshirts. You can't trust anything doesn't have the potential of hazard. So the backhoe is an awesome tool. In certain scenarios, it makes work really fast. But it just there's, I mean, you try to pick it up, but there's so much left behind that there's just a phenomenal amount of handwork that takes place afterwards, that there's not a way that I've devised or brainstorming with the crew to come up with a fast method to do it. It's just a tedious, slow process. And so this goes into tomorrow. We will be out. We're beginning on Campus Hill again tomorrow and have a pretty massive camp there.
Yeah, that one's
and then even bigger one behind the Grange. I have photos following this slide that'll come. I walked with code enforcement today to kind of build the game plan. That's just a trailer that's abandoned, and from the evidence around it, it's just a frequent spot for sharps drug use. They go in there and I don't,
yeah.
But this is, I mean, this is, so Willow and I are anticipating that this is going to be 2 days just on what she has tagged right now. We're going to do everything we can tomorrow, and then we're going to shoot for a day early next week. We just have, so we were supposed to do 2 days this week, and we just don't have the manpower to do it right now. So Willow rescheduled for a day next week, and neither one of us thinks we're going to be able to accomplish it all tomorrow.
No.
But that was just another number that I brought up, just based on the 3 days that this will be 3 days this month. If this does take 2 days, and that's 10%. It's not quite 10%. It's like 8.6%, but nearly 10% of our entire parks budget for full-time employees for the year, and 3 days in 1 month.
That's
so it's just something. I mean, I didn't realize it was as high as it was until I started putting the numbers together. And Cartograph is an awesome tool that thank you guys for allowing us or working with us to purchase that program. But it's been really cool, and it's opened my eyes to the cost on how easy it is to put together reports on actual costs.
And this is not.
But that's Campus Hill. That's what we're really starting tomorrow.
It's not scheduled. You're taking away.
I mean,
staff. We have a small staff taking away from work. You're supposed to
it is, and it's. I don't know what else it is other than parks. It's city properties that are usually near parks. I've worked, some of it, I sometimes think maybe it's storm drains if it's down in the creek channel on like some of the flood hazard reduction projects, but it's still general fund. It's money that's tough to come by, and it's time. It's just a lot of time. but it was not my intent at all to complain or anything of that nature today. It was just to show kind of what we've been dealing with, because I don't think it's been like this in the past. I know it hasn't been like this in the nearly 6 years I've been maintenance manager. There's been just a huge increase as of lately, and it's something that our budget just hasn't caught up with yet.
Yeah. And following the way these people came, do they follow the guidelines? We have to sit on everything.
No. So we can haul away. So these are camps that Willow, she gives full notice. This is after people that are there are supposed to have cleaned up everything, and that's what's left. This is absolutely not. And I do want to give a huge thank you to the Yreka cleanup group. They have been awesome working with us. They've helped us with disposal fees. They've helped us. Yreka transfer has been great. They've given us the best deals they can, because on sometimes we'll have like a 40-yard roll-off container dropped, depending on the nature. Like for tomorrow, it's just not going to work, just especially when the ground's a little bit wetter like it is now, to have to move everything to a centralized location. It just makes a mess. It's easier first. It's just a better method for us right now to have dump trucks that we can move from spot to spot, so the equipment doesn't have to move as far. But there's been awesome community help. Everyone's doing their part. It's just a thing that's here right now that has to be taken care of. And it was just my hope just to bring it to everyone's attention a little bit better.
So, boy, yeah, thank you, Ben. That's a lot of work. And like we said, it's right in my backyard. But this is one of the results of why we need an urban campsite, is because a lot of this could be prevented by having this, because it's with an urban campsite. These individuals will go into a structured environment to where this won't get out of control like it is, and the problems that won't arise like this. Another thing we need to look at as a city, the council and stuff, is what Ben just explained is budget wise. That we got a crew that's using this, and we got budget that we're expelling a lot of money towards this sort of thing. So we need to look into the future of this. Willow code enforcement's going out, and she and their department is expending this kind of money and this sort of money too. So this is stuff that we need to look at in the budget part of it, to go, okay, this is not fair for the public works' budget to be pulling this out of their budget. So we need to look at that now, what that looks like in the big picture. Yeah, it's still the general fund, but it's still coming out of a certain section. Code enforcement, this money's coming out of a certain section, and they're using part of their budget for this. So this is a huge problem that's costing the city a lot of money, and it shouldn't come out of one budget on one department. It shouldn't come out of code enforcement budget. So we need to figure out what that means for the future too, is on the budget wise. I know it looks like it's okay. It's still coming out of the budget, city budget, the general funds, but we need to address this because it's killing staff time. It's killing staff time, and we need to fix this. And so we need to address the budget problem with that. The other thing, like I said, is by more preventative, and having the urban campsite is going to be more preventative on this happening. And that's why we've been talking about this for so long, and that's why we need to make it happen, because it will help prevent this. So it's going to save the city millions of dollars in the long term. Just if you look at what Medford's done, and I know I keep going back to what Road Retreat's done for the city of Medford, but they did an actual study on this, and it saved the city of Medford millions of dollars. That's why they donated $1 million to the Road Retreat for their urban campsite, is because it saves them money in the long run by doing this. Having a structured environment where they have an area that's safe for them, that their trash doesn't get so piled up that it gets out of control. So we don't have to have staff time. It doesn't cause our law enforcement to have frivolous calls out to where they have to go out there and take care of a homeless person that's having issues, because they're in a structured environment. It keeps the fire department, from paramedics, from going out there because they're having false alarms of a heart attack or something, because they're in a controlled environment. It's literally saves the city millions of dollars by having these urban campsites, and they've proven it. So that's like, I know I preach about this all the time, but I'm going to keep going back to this because it will save the money, save the city money in the long run. It will save our staff. It will save people getting hurt, people dying. So it's something we need to keep pushing forward on. Yes, Mr. Milton.
I'm in. First off, I just want to say I don't think you came up complaining at all or whining.
No.
I, for one, I'm sure the rest council agrees with me. I appreciate you bringing that to our attention of the cost, because I was even wondering, gosh, how much did those 4 dumpsters cost when there are dump trucks up there and the equipment? I go, how much is this costing the city? Where is it coming from? So I was questioning it. And I mean, I thank you and your team for cleaning that up and all that Willow does and really bringing that to our attention. It's an eye opener. It really is. And I'm really appreciative of that. So thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank
You're
you, guys.
awesome.
Thank you, Ben.
Mr. Mayor, we have talked. I know that at one point in time, Councilman Smith Freeman and Retta and I, along, I think, with the rest of the council at one time and the city manager, probably back during Steve Baker's era near the end, about putting money aside for homelessness and trying to figure out, 30,000, 100,000. I mean, where does it come from? The other thing is I know that we as a council asked for the code enforcement budget to be upped. And again, I don't know what it was. It wasn't necessarily significant, but I mean, I think some money can be used out of code enforcement, but I think we probably need to have a different way of looking. Am I on? Am I okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody's okay. I think we need to have a different way as a council and a city manager and our city planner and city finance director of looking at what we do with homeless. And I will agree with you on the rogue retreat. The one thing I will add for me, the greatest thing is when I talk to these people that say they got out of homelessness, I'm like, whoa. There's not a price you could put on. I mean, $1 million to get one person out of homelessness is a lot of money. But to see who they've gotten out of homelessness, and you've seen them, you've been up with me on one of the trips where we talked to people and that flunked the program, one woman 3 times, but still got out. And I think that's a biggie. So thanks again, Ben.
Awesome. All right, Jason.
There he goes.
All right, so my staff report is really going to focus around an inquiry I had to follow up on the shopping cart ordinance and where we currently stand. So I'll just give a brief description of my understanding of where we're at and some history on the ordinance itself. So the shopping cart ordinance for retail shopping cart permit will now be required by the owner of a business in Yreka that has 11 or more carts. The permit application may include a requirement by the director, which is code enforcement in this instance, to provide mandatory electronic disabling devices. The shopping cart permit requires a retrieval service or to have an electronic disabling device for the cart or carts. All existing retail establishments shall convert all carts to have an electronic disabling device by January 1st, 2025, regardless. So eventually, these establishments, if they do not implement this now, will have to implement by that date. Any business that fails to apply for a shopping cart permit shall be subject to comply with the disabling device section of this ordinance immediately. Shopping cart identification signs are also required with this permit and ordinance on each cart, including the cart owner and retail establishment, valid telephone number or address on returning cart, violating state and Yreka Muni Code. An inventory ID number will have to be on every single cart, and carts shall not be removed from premises without consent of the owner. Notification signs at each exit of the establishment will also be required by this ordinance. There is an operating without a permit is subject to a $50 per day fine. There is no charge to get the permit that we're requiring. Special and unique conditions may apply to each permit at the discretion of the director, which is code enforcement. So technically, each permit may look slightly different based off of the retail establishment. Now, for the public side of this ordinance, for the public, it is unlawful to remove a cart from an establishment's property or to be in possession of a cart not on a retail establishment's property. It is also unlawful to alter, convert, or tamper the cart and abandon or leave a cart anywhere other than their retail establishment location. As far as impounding is concerned, if carts are impounded, the retail owner has 3 days to retrieve from the date of notice at no charge. The city is not liable for damage to the carts. If 20 carts are impounded within a 90-day period, this will instigate a required new plan as far as the permit is concerned. So a letter, to my understanding, because this happened long before I began here, but a letter was sent out in October to a number of different businesses that we felt that the city felt like this was going to implicate with having a permit process. The ordinance was actually adopted on November 16th of 2021. Within the ordinance, it had a 61-day time frame to enact. So that is now passed as far as 1/17 of 22. So we can enact this ordinance. The ordinance notice for public hearing was published on 10/20 of 21 and 10/27 of 21. So now we can publish the approved summary of the ordinance based off of kind of what you guys had on consent today, which is summarizing ordinances in the newspaper. And then we can start enforcing the ordinance once that is published. My take on this, and having a conversation with code enforcement and the chief Gilman this morning concerning this issue, is that I think it's imperative that we not only mail this out to each of the businesses affected, but that I will myself personally go talk to the managers or owners, depending on the business, to walk through the ordinance so that they have a better understanding of how they can comply and come get a permit. And then code enforcement can start administering those permits and enforcing this ordinance. So just as a note, Walmart did pick up 100 carts in the last month from the Public Works yard. As total, not just Walmart, but a total at the time of drafting this, we still had 175 carts at the Public Works yard. I think that grows daily. I'll work with Chief Gilman to draft a letter that will go out with the ordinance and the permit that will go in the mail, and then that I will hand deliver to the number of businesses that this applies to. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Jason, for the update on that. We've been wanting to know what was going on with that. That was an ordinance that we were looking at for quite a while, actually. And the main part of that ordinance, the reason why that ordinance is to basically reimburse staff time, because Willow and city staff spend a lot of time. Not only do they pick up these carts on a daily basis, I mean, we're talking like 5 to 10 of them daily, but they're full of trash too. So not only are we having to deal with the carts, but we're also have to deal with the trash that we have to get rid of and pay for to get rid of. So there's costs that incur on this, and that's why we're pushing forward on this ordinance, is so we can get reimbursed for some of this cost, that we're having to endure. And this is not we're not reinventing the wheel here. This is other cities, Medford, all the other cities have the same ordinance going on. It's nothing new. It's helped out Medford. I know they still see carts up there, but nowhere near as bad as what it used to be up there. It used to be way worse. So it's going to be helpful for our city, not only reimbursing for the time that we're spending on it, but keeping our city looking cleaner too. I'm sure Ben can contest to that. There was a bunch of shopping carts on those cleanups that he did. And a lot of times they'll take those carts and fill them full and bring them down to the street. But that's still a cost that we have to, absorb somehow. So this is to help with that. So, yes, Mr. McCoy.
Mr. Ledford, I do want to follow up because you have not been here for a month or so. And then 8 months ago, I personally spoke with each manager or owner, depending on the type of work, to let them know that this was coming down the pipe, and to let them know that they would at some point in the next 3 or 4 years be required also to have the
Willocks
field. So in the case of one corporate at the far end, I was out probably a half a dozen times and talked to 6 different managers, because we had one manager that got fired. 300 carts sitting out there, So there, when you go out, management should be well aware.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
Should be. You'd think they'd care a little bit more, being that they had at one point in time 300 carts at our city yard. That's a chunk of change. When I do the math, it was $60,000. I think I did the math on. Yeah, just at one place.
I also called corporate and they didn't know anything about it.
I don't know why they don't, because I know that they got sent a letter for sure, because we requested that Randy Johnson send that out, and he did reassure us that he sent that letter out to them and called on them also. He also made phone calls. We had him do both because of that, to make sure that they are aware of it. So it shouldn't be anything new, but I appreciate you going out and doing that personally, because I think it has more emphasis on how it means to us as a city. So thank you.
Yeah, and it can be convoluted if you're not used to reading legalese and ordinance. So I think that our intention is that everyone needs to get a permit if you have 11 or more carts. So this isn't something that they can just think does not apply to them. And so they're going to need to be active with our code enforcement officer to create that plan.
Yep.
So.
Yep. And the city has asked through Mr. Baker and others has actually asked them, I think, twice to come to meetings to discuss this for input.
Nobody
They
showed.
got one guy, one man.
But I mean, they have other things to do too. And I think, yeah, we got one that showed up. So
Yeah.
Okay.
it's not, we don't want to be punitive.
No.
We don't want people taking their stuff off.
It's been in the paper about it. It's been, they're aware of it, you know.
Yeah, we had it a few times in the newspaper.
Yeah.
Bill Choi put it there for us.
Yeah. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Oh, was that the end of your report?
That was it.
Thank you, Jason. Does anybody, other staff have a report? Chief Gilman's
You're
going.
sure quiet. Don't you want to tell us about that? How about our police dogs?
Yeah, that's good news.
Oh, 5 weeks. Okay.
Yep. We got to keep it quiet. We can't go visit. I've already been reprimanded. I can't go even see them. I'm like,
I know. They're bonding and training.
I thought it was a her.
They're going to go through some serious training right now, huh?
Yes, they have
That'd be
been.
good. Sweet. Okay. Well, then no other staff, and I'll go to councilman's reports. Paul McCoy.
I want to say thank you to Willow for everything she does.
Thank you, Nancy.
While I was out doing the homeless county, there wasn't one person who was not.
Yep.
She makes us come to mind, but she helps us. So I want to thank her for that. I want to thank behavioral health, YES, Sarah, Wayne, Joe, and everybody that helped on the point in time count. We had a good point in time count. We've got out about 3 or 4 days that way altogether.
How's our numbers? Do we know?
I won't. I'll know sometime next week. I got to get some from Mount Shasta yet. I just spoke with him. Yeah.
And I've got 5 in my car.
Okay.
That I'm going through. So I want to thank you all for helping out. It's interesting. I want to thank the guys, Ben. I'm not going to say any more than this. I know you've run into some issues on Main Street with the sewer. And I know it's taken a ton of guys to go there and help. So I want to thank the guys for all the work. I went by 2 or 3 times and just on Yreka, I thought, I don't want to get into that. They were doing. But I want to thank you because I mean your story seating up around where I live, and I appreciate that. And I finally, well, I guess that's it. I want to thank you for all that. You've been doing a good job.
Yes.
Your guys are just unbelievably out there. Appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Mr. Milton.
Okay. Yeah, it's been busy. It's a little personal for me, so it's going to be, hope I get through it. I just want to thank the city of Yreka, my fellow council members. I lost my dad about 2 weeks ago. And so I've been a little out of the game for a little bit, but everybody's been supportive, sending me emails, updates, but they have all reached out to me and my family. We hear you know, your kind thoughts and your prayers, and we really, really appreciate it. It's a huge loss. Some people probably want to think, or probably think why I'm sitting here in such a short time, but my dad was hardworking. He even told me when he was sick and I was going to miss a meeting, he said, no, you worked hard. I'm proud of you for being elected. This was a city he lived in for 77 years. You know, he's born and raised here. So, so I just want to thank you for everybody who's reached out to me and to my family. We really appreciate it. I'm going to miss him dearly, but you know, I can hear in my head continue on. So I want to thank everybody. And with that, I'm going to pass on because I don't want to get a little choked up. So thank you so much for everybody too that has reached out to me and been so supportive. I so appreciate it. So does my family.
Thank you, Corey. Yeah, he's going to be greatly missed. I've known him all my life too. So it's my family and his family have been closely, might as well even say related somehow, probably, but in one shape or form because they've been around for so long. But my dad and his dad were old truck driver buddies for years and years and years. So yeah, we grew up together basically, and he's going to be greatly missed. Like you said, a hardworking man, just good guy to lead by example, wasn't he? For sure. So we're sorry for your loss, Corey, and he'll be missed. Joan.
I can't follow that.
I know.
I just would like to say my heartfelt sympathy to you and your family. You know, I've contacted you, and I know how hard it is from when I lost my dad. That's hard. It's really hard. Oh, okay. So I also wanted to thank Dwayne and Debbie Kegg, as well as Paul, for all your hard work on the point in time. I just helped the one day. I just manned the central area. Dwayne and I worked on that, and did the tour around the community center and stuff. But good work, guys. Really, it was tough work going out. We talked to a few of them. I know you guys worked all weekend, so thank you for all your work on that. Because the people that don't know, the point in time count, we counted the people, and you'll probably tell them more, that and it happens once a year. It's nationwide. And depending upon the number of people that are actually here that have been homeless at a certain point in time, that's the type of funding that we get back from the federal government and from the state so that we can provide services and help homeless people. So that's why we do it. That's why we keep talking about it. It happens only once a year. So thank you for that. Let's see, Jason and I and Paul had a meeting with, and Arthur, thank you, Arthur, for setting it all up. But we had a meeting with the pool people that helped with the grant. A lot of the people that used to run our old pool for us that helped. Splash, yes, Buzzy and several others from Splash, as well as Robin, who helped write the grant. Anyway, going over what the grant entails, and I know that it was mentioned tonight, you know, how are we going to maintain it? And that's the type of things that we're talking about now. So anyway, we met, and we're going to meet again next week, I believe, or the week after.
Next week, yep.
Yeah, and we're working out options for all of us to discuss how we're going to look at the maintenance and maintaining and keep it up and all that good kind of stuff. I don't know how many of, let's see, Rotary speaker. I wanted to let you all know that John Hinton, who is the construction manager on Highway 3, who we're fortunate, he lives in Montague. He works for Caltrans out of Reading, but he lives in Montague, and I've worked with him probably now over 15 years on different things within the community. As a matter of fact, I found out at the Rotary meeting that his daughter is dating Marie Caldwell's son. They're both going to college now. So anyway, he gave us some maps, which I got a copy for you because you couldn't attend, and for Matt as well. And he gave us a rundown on how the Highway 3 construction project is going to work. And from what I gathered, Ben probably knows all this already because he's been talking, I think, to Public Works about it, right? And Matt was there. Oh no. Anyway, probably from what I heard from him is the biggest chunk of time on that construction project is they're going to be shutting down South Yreka where the light is and that, what did he say, 52 hours? I think that's what he said. For 52 hours, that area will be shut down. So that'll be challenging. I don't know how they're going to do that. They said they've got it worked out. So they said it'll go fast. I don't know about you, but 52 hours when you need to get to Rayleigh's, it's a long time to wait. And then, of course, I attended the housing workshop that Juliana put on, and Jason. I attended virtually. I know that Paul and Debbie were there, and thank you guys for attending in person. That was the day after our point in time count, I think. Anyway, oh no, it was the same day.
It was the same day.
Yeah.
That's why I wasn't there.
Wayne and I were there at 5 o'clock going, oh my gosh, this meeting starts in a minute. Anyway, so I know that that's just the beginning for our housing,
Element
of
the general plan.
Of our general plan. And our general plan, by the way, is up this year.
Yep.
2022. So we've got to do it this year. We have no choice. So good. I'm glad it started.
Yeah.
Also, the Elks had a crab feed. I don't know how many of you went to that. There were over 100 people there. It went really well. They got fresh crab from over on the coast and brought it back, and it was really good.
Nice.
And of course, they had a dessert auction, and I bought a very expensive but very delicious lemon meringue pie. Anyway, that was really good. And then there was a women in business meeting also last Thursday. I believe that Lenita was there as well. And there was a woman there from Jedi, and there is some training available. There's some free tax preparation available for small business people. And there's also funding available for people who lost money or were not able to operate during the pandemic. So she let us know about that. That's through Jedi, and also from the EDC. Quentin from EDC has the paperwork where you can fill out if you want to get some funding, grant funding back that would help out with, helping you get through the year with the pandemic. So I thought that was really good. And that's all. There was more, but that's enough.
Oh, good. Thank you, Jim. Debbie.
Okay, I'm surprised nobody mentioned the Lowell meeting we went to.
Oh, that's right.
We did do a Lowell meeting, but there wasn't that. Oh, it was a good meeting.
Yeah, it was
Good
good
job,
meeting.
Debbie. Good job, Debbie. You did it.
I got to say something new. Okay. And let's
That's how
see.
you start going first, I guess.
I did have a meeting with the Collier board. That went fine. We did have a.
Deb, could you turn your mic on?
No. Yes. No.
Yeah.
I obey when I hear a voice from above. So the Lola meeting I talked about, I did have a C2C meeting, which is a Collier Interpretive and Information Center. And everybody knows it's the beautiful rest stop up north from here. It's very nice. And there is a representative from each of the cities that are there representing their interest in promoting tourism businesses to their area and drawing the crowd to see whatever town they're representing. It's amazing. They see 1.2 million people a year there into the center, into the facility. The center has different numbers, but they're all good. They're really good. Friends of the Fair has an open house coming up, which will be March the 12th. I'll try to remember right before then, at the meeting right before then, for the grand opening, because Cal Fire has been in there the whole time with the new remodel of the state certified kitchen in there. And the whole place was remodeled with Andy Brown Construction. He was awarded the bid. But anyway, I'm looking forward to the community seeing it and being aware that it is a certified kitchen for some of our small businesses that need a facility, licensed facility to work out of. And I finally have, last thing, finally have a LAFCO meeting coming up on the 8th. Wow, we haven't had one in months, Yeah, oh, it's been a long time. And they are short one member at large for the board. So if anybody's interested, we don't meet often, and I kind of have to remember how to run a meeting again, but.
Oh, you get to chair it?
I'm chair, yeah. I've been chair for a while.
You put her on the spot.
Commission. And Jason, have you been to any of them?
No, I have not been to a lab committee.
Oh, they're thrilling.
Lovely.
And that's all.
That's
Thank you.
Not much to add other than, like I said, I want to thank everybody for participating in the point in time count. Thank you, Sarah, and your crew.
Oh, Sarah.
They
I'm
were
sorry. Sarah helped
they were
out.
amazing. Then Sarah helped out and Paul helped out. On Sunday, we went and to the food giveaway down at Pacific Power, the lunch giveaway. We sat down there and gosh, we did quite a few forums down there again too for homeless point in time count. So that was a really good turnout there also. So we got some good numbers. I think it was a good eye opener. I think your crew got to see some things that they were not expecting probably. That was pretty interesting. They did a great job. They're awesome. Good young kids. I like seeing kids involved. I call them kids. They're not kids anymore, but it was good. They got to see some stuff. There was some good response to it. A lot of positive response, like you said, to Willow. A lot of the homeless people couldn't talk, but all nicely about Willow and how how she keeps them in line. Yeah, but she does an awesome job. Willow was there too for our point in time count. She participated in the morning part of it. We thank law enforcement for being on call for all that, because you never know what might come up. But it was good. Willow has a plethora of information on the homeless, so she's a valuable asset when it comes to the point in time count, because she knows all the individuals and knows what we're going into. We pretty much had it all figured out. We went to most every place. It's kind of hard capturing a lot of the numbers this year. Unfortunately, we experienced a positive thing. The Karuk tribe actually did a bunch of hotel vouchers, and so that was good. Unfortunately, we didn't get the numbers from the Karuk tribe. We're still working on that, so maybe we can get that from them. Confidentiality, they were expressing that they're concerned on the confidentiality of that, but hopefully we can get that from them, because they end up housing quite a few numbers of individuals, which is a good thing. Kept them out, and still a lot of the individuals are actually still housed in motel rooms and stuff right now. As of Sunday, at least, when we did the count, we talked to quite a few. I'd say probably about a half dozen individuals that were still housed, aren't they?
Yeah,
at least, yeah.
That was the primary resource. If folks had a resource, it was from the tribe.
Yep. So that's good that they're doing that. I love seeing that the tribe being involved in a positive way like that. So that was good. We'll see what the numbers are. I should find out next week what our numbers are. They'll probably be down a little bit on that aspect because of that. We got Mount Shasta. Their numbers were down so far from what they're telling me, and Weeds numbers were down too. This last snowstorm that we got in the beginning of January drove quite a few individuals out and put some of them in housing too. So it was good in some aspects. But it was quite an endeavor. It was a lot of time. I probably last week alone, I probably have, I'd say at least 30 hours involved in housing, or excuse me, a point in time count. I know Paul has quite a few. Sarah had quite a few hours last week involved in counting the homeless. So I thank you guys for being involved. And Joan was right there and helping at the dispatch.
I was making sure everybody was safe.
Yes.
If they didn't call in, I hunted them down.
Yes, you did. We called Sarah a couple times. Where's your volunteers? What's going on with them? We're panicking. Other than that, I need to make a shout out for my wife.
Yes, she did a lot of running around for us.
She did a lot of running around. She got some coffee, donuts, and did all that. And, well, if it wasn't for my wife, I wouldn't have had the forms. I wouldn't have had all that stuff, gift cards, and all of those things to hand out to individuals. But I also got a shout out for her. Has started another business. Siskiyou Outbuildings, which a lot of you already know that we've taken over that business, but that's my wife and she's doing good with it. She is surprisingly, the shed business, outbuilding business is it's pretty busy already this time of year, surprisingly enough. Yeah, yeah. So it's been will be an interesting venture for her this next few months, but it's taken off already. So I give her credit. I didn't know it'd be that busy of a business, but she's taking it and running with it. So give her credit for that. So with that in mind, I think there's nothing else. We'll adjourn the meeting and go to closed session. Thank you all.
That's right.
Yes.